What if the most expensive financial decision you make every month is one you barely notice? Not your rent, not your car payment, not even your groceries, but a quiet stream of small charges that feel too insignificant to question. $12, $15, $9.99. Individually, they don't look like decisions. They feel like background noise. But over time, they start to behave like something else entirely. Consider a fairly typical situation. Alex is 26, working in a mid-sized city. It could be Denver, Manchester, Berlin, or Toronto. Nothing extreme. Not particularly cheap, not excessively expensive. Alex earns around $65,000 a year. After taxes, healthcare, and standard deductions, that turns into roughly $4,000 per month in take-home pay. From the outside, everything looks stable. Rent is about $1,600. Car payment, $400. Student loans, $300. Groceries, insurance, utilities, around $1,200. By the end of the month, there's roughly $500 to $600 left. Not a lot, but not nothing either. It feels manageable, responsible even. There's no obvious financial mistake here. No reckless spending. No major debt spiral. No dramatic red flags. And that's exactly where the problem begins. Because nowhere in this picture does anything look wrong, which makes it very easy to ignore what's quietly accumulating in the background. Subscriptions, streaming platforms, music apps, cloud storage, fitness memberships, premium apps, news paywalls, software tools. Individually, each one feels justified, useful, affordable, even necessary. Most of them fall into a comfortable range. $8, $10, $12, maybe $15 per month. So they don't trigger concern. They don't feel like spending. They feel like access. Let's say Alex has about 8 subscriptions. Nothing unusual. A streaming service or 2. A music platform. A productivity app. Cloud storage. A gym membership. Average cost, around $12 each. That's roughly $96 per month. Still doesn't sound like a problem. In fact, most people would round that down mentally. About 100, which feels harmless. But money doesn't operate on feelings. It operates on time. So instead of asking what this costs today, it's more useful to ask, what does this cost over the next 10 or 20 years? Let's keep it simple. $100 per month. That's $1,200 per year. Over 10 years, that's $12,000. Over 20 years, $24,000. At this point, it starts to feel less trivial. But this still isn't the full picture, because this assumes the money simply disappears. In reality, every dollar spent is also a dollar not invested. Now we introduce a second layer. Opportunity cost. If that same $100 per month were invested consistently into a broad index fund earning an average of 7% annually, the math changes. After 10 years, that grows to around $17,000. After 20 years, it reaches roughly $52,000. Not through any complex strategy, not through timing the market, just through consistency and time. So the question shifts. It's no longer, are subscriptions expensive? It becomes, what is the long-term cost of not noticing them? Because the real impact isn't the $100 leaving your account each month. It's the $50,000 that never arrives. And this is where the system becomes interesting. Because nothing about subscriptions feels like a financial decision. There's no friction, no large upfront payment, no moment where you pause and reconsider. Just a small confirmation screen. And then it disappears into automation. Compare that to something like buying a $1,200 laptop. You think about it. You compare options. You hesitate. You evaluate whether it's worth it. But $12 per month? That feels almost invisible. Even though, over time, it can cost the same or more. This isn't accidental. The subscription model is designed around one simple principle. Reduce the perceived cost to the point where the decision feels insignificant. Because once the decision feels small, it becomes easy. And once it becomes easy, it becomes repeatable. There's also a psychological layer. Subscriptions remove the feeling of loss. When you buy something once, you feel the money leave. There's a clear exchange. With subscriptions, that feeling is diluted. The cost is spread out, which makes it less noticeable, less painful, and easier to ignore. There's another subtle effect. Subscriptions create a sense of identity. You're not just paying for a service. You're part of something. A platform. A system. a routine. Canceling doesn't just feel like saving money. It can feel like giving something up, even when you're barely using it. Over time, these small commitments stack. Not dramatically, not in a way that forces attention, but quietly, month after month, year after year. Now go back to Alex. $500 left at the end of each month. But $100 of that is already committed to subscriptions, which means, in reality, there's only $400 available. And even that tends to get absorbed by small, unplanned expenses. Eating out, transportation, occasional purchases. So investing rarely happens. Not because there's no money, but because there's no clarity. And this is where the real issue sits. Not in the subscriptions themselves, but in the way they fragment financial awareness. Each one is small, but together, they reshape behavior. Because once your income is divided into dozens of automatic outflows, you stop actively deciding where your money goes. You just manage what's left. Now compare this to a slightly different approach. Not extreme, not restrictive, just intentional. Imagine Alex still earns the same $4,000 per month. Same rent, same car, same lifestyle. But instead of letting subscriptions accumulate passively, they review them, not with the goal of eliminating everything, but with the goal of aligning them. Maybe 8 subscriptions become 4. The ones actually used. The ones that genuinely add value. Monthly subscription cost drops from $100 to $50. That $50 difference doesn't feel life-changing. It won't dramatically improve this month, or even this year. But over time, it behaves very differently. Invested consistently at 7%, that $50 per month becomes around $8,500 in 10 years, roughly $26,000 in 20 years. Again, no dramatic moment, no sudden breakthrough, just a quiet shift in direction. And that's the part most people miss. Financial outcomes are rarely shaped by large, obvious decisions alone. They're shaped by small, repeated patterns, especially the ones that don't feel important. Because the decisions that feel small are the ones we stop questioning. There's also a structural reason this continues. Most financial advice focuses on big moves. Buying a house, investing in stocks, saving aggressively. Important, but incomplete. Because if the small leaks aren't addressed, the big strategies don't have much to work with. It's difficult to invest consistently when your cash flow is already fragmented. And subscriptions are particularly effective at creating that fragmentation. Because they operate silently. They don't demand attention. They don't trigger concern. They just continue. Over time, this creates a subtle illusion. You feel like you're managing your money responsibly because there's no obvious problem. But at the same time, progress feels slow or non-existent. This disconnect is what makes the subscription model so effective. Not because it's expensive, but because it's invisible. Now, this isn't an argument to cancel everything. That's not realistic. And it's not necessary. Many subscriptions provide real value. They save time. They improve quality of life. They're worth paying for. The difference is awareness. Financially aware individuals don't necessarily spend less. They spend more deliberately. They understand that every recurring expense is a long-term commitment, not just a monthly decision. So instead of asking, "Is this worth $12?" they ask, "Is this worth $12 every month for the next several years?" That question feels different. Because it introduces time, and time is where the real cost lies. They also think in terms of trade-offs, not restrictions. If this subscription stays, what does it replace? Investment? Savings? Flexibility? Because money doesn't exist in isolation. Every allocation reduces another possibility. Over a long enough timeline, these small reallocations become meaningful, not because any single one is significant, but because they're consistent. And consistency, over time, compounds. In both directions. If ignored, small expenses compound into lost potential. If managed, small savings compound into real wealth. The mechanism is the same. Only the direction changes. So the goal isn't perfection. It's visibility. Knowing where your money is going. And more importantly, understanding what it's costing you over time. Because once you see that clearly, the decisions become simpler. Not easier, but clearer. And clarity tends to lead to better outcomes, without needing drastic changes. Going back to the original question, what's the most expensive financial decision you make each month? It might not be the one that feels the biggest. It might be the one you don't think about at all. If this gave